Hello guys, in this video I'll be explaining how to set up cookies on a React app from an Express backend.
So this video will be explained in two-part process, because the way of sending cookies during development is kind of different during production. So first thing that we'll be doing is to initialize the Express app. So init --y. Now one thing to note is that if we serve our Express app and React app on two different ports, it is as good as simply saying we are hosting it on two different domain names. The implication of this is that we are going to have CORS issues. So we would also need to set up CORS while setting up our Express app. So we also need one more thing. We need node_mon as a dev dependencies, so that we don't have to keep restarting the server every time we change something in the code. So we just npm I node_mon --save --dev to save it as a development dependency. So that's done now. So we need to create an app.js file right here. So we should also set up the node_mon, right, a start script. So right here in the package.json, I'm going to create a script with the dev name and simply run node_mon app.js. Now in our app.js, we can start initializing the Express app. Bring in Express. Bring in Express. Also bring in session for our Express session, the package we installed. Then we can come here, initialize our app, then maybe create a port. Create a port. So this is going to be either process.am, because we are going to be hosting this on a server, on a heroku server, so that we can also show how to set up Express session while in production and while in development. So we say ports. So if this is not available, we host on port 3000. So next we just I think listing on port. So we can simply just pass a callback. Simply log server is running on, say, port. So now I think we can test up this. We can just say app dot and just save this and run npm run dev, because of this dev script I put here. So this will run node_mon app.js. Let's see if everything works as planned. Let's see, cannot find module express. What's wrong here? Okay, I'm not sure I installed Express. Yeah. So let's run it again. So I have a typo. Sorry. And you can see we have server is running on port 3000. So we successfully set up our Express server. So I think we can start setting up Express session now. So remember I said Express session works as a middleware to help us manage our cookies. So, and as such we call it as a middleware. App.use. Then we call session. Now session accepts an object which houses the configuration for the Express session. So first we call receive false, save uninitialized false secret, or say call it session, and then cookie. I will be explaining some of these options. Cookie max age, say 1000 times 6. This is when the cookie would expire. Same site, no, and I think secure, say false first. So as I said, you could read the documentation for some of these options, but I will be explaining. I'll be talking about the the same site, and the same site flag and the secure flag. So if you remember, I said that we can, if we'll be hosting this application on a heroku server, and we'll be hosting it locally too. Because the issue with Express session is, you can see when you develop your application locally, it could work, and when you deploy your application on a server, then you notice it does not work again, and error messages are very scanty. So now on the same site attribute, why it is set to none is because what this says is this cookie is going to be set on a third-party application, a third-party website, or a third-party different domain name. Right, that is a domain name different from the application's domain. Right. So what this is saying is that the cookie can be set on a third-party website. It has other options. You can read more about them in the documentations. And then in recent development, because of security issues, it says that you have to set secure attribute, secure flag to true also. And this is simply saying that the communication between the application should be the HTTPS protocol and not the HTTP protocol. So HTTP protocol is not going to work, rather the HTTPS protocol. So this is a simple React app that I already set up, right? I already cleaned it up and just set up an initial form, a simple form. So let's quickly run npm run dev to see what we have. I will link the code to this starting project on the in the description section below. So npm run dev, it starts, or rather npm run start, run start. And now we can go to our browser and simply run localhost 3000. We just run. Now this is the simple form, right? So at the end, our target is going to be to, this form should be able to, when we type in our name, say this, and we click stop cookie, right, it should be able to create a cookie from the Express app, to send this request to the Express app, and the Express app should be able to store the cookie, right, on the browser. And then when we retrieve cookie, they will send another request to the Express app to decode the cookie for us, and it's going to send the name or the response back as the username, and we're going to display it here. So that's going to be the aim of this project. Now, if you remember, I mentioned that we are going to be hosting these applications, this React and Express application, on 2 different ports. So, and it's going to look like we're having 2 different domain names, and as such, we need to set up CORS. Right. So CORS is a package that helps us manage cross-origin request. So you can read more about that. So I'm going to install the package now. Installation is done. So we'll set up CORS. Right. I'm bringing it as const CORS equals to require CORS. Right. So to simply set up CORS, we say app.use, I'll call it again CORS. I think that's all. So this application is going to expect requests from any domain name at all. So it's going to allow every domain name to make requests, and it's going to respond to every domain name, every domain that sends requests to this application. So now we can start setting up our route. So this first route is going to be to save a name as a cookie, right? So first we're going to call app.post, the normal Express protocol. Say we call this route /new. We tag this as an async function, call request response, right? I think that's all from here, and then we call it in a try catch block. So in case we have an error, we simply just log the error, and then from here, see, since we are going to be sending a post request and we're going to expect the name attribute on the rec.body.name, we're going to call const name equals to rec.body.name, right? think, yeah. So then we also have to set up the Express JSON middleware, so that I can pass JSON request. So called JSON, I think, yep. So from here now we can see, now since we've already set up the Express session, right, you can just call request dot session dot name. So this is going to set a cookie automatically on the client, and we're going to set it to name. So this is going to get the name attribute from the body of the object, and then it's going to set it on the set a cookie on request dot session dot name. So I think that's also, once we are done, we'll say res dot send say message, and we say saved, and then we also have a status of say tool and created. I think that's all from here. So then we also create another route to get or say decode sent cookie. Yeah, decode sent cookie, say app, and we send the get request. Now since cookies are going to be sent automatically to the server, you don't need to make access the name on anybody or any other thing. So it's just going to be sent automatically, and we'll get it from, say, name async request also. Now if we have a valid cookie, we should have the okay, no, let's put it in the try catch block too. Say in case we have an error, we log the error. So if we have a valid cookie set, if the client is sending a valid cookie, we should have, let's console log, we should have request.session, right, .name. This is how we access the sent cookie from the client, thanks to the Express session middleware which we set up earlier, right? So if we have this, then we can simply say res.send. We send a message again, but this time around we simply send like session name. I think we are done with this. Yep. So let's check if we have any errors. npm run dev. Yep, no error. So since we don't have any errors, we can start setting up our React app rather. So as I mentioned earlier, this is just a simple React app which I modified already with just a couple of styles, right? And it has an input which takes a ref, right? So if you want to access this input, we simply get it from say name.current. I think, yeah, that's how we access the name. So we need to install Axios already to make requests. I think we'll need Axios. And so installation of Axios is done. So we can start setting up our click function. That's a function to store the cookie when we click this button, a function to retrieve the cookie when we click on this button. So see also store cookie. I'll simply do this. We'll call it in the try catch block. We'll also mark it as an async function. So call const data equals to axios dot posts. So http localhost port 3000, and we then send the body, right? It's expecting a name attribute which is going to be available on input.current.say value. I think that's all on this, and in case we have an error, we simply log the error. I think that's for store cookie. And then to get the cookie back, we simply call const get cookie. Yep. And then we still tag it as an async function. I think this should be /new if I'm correct. I'll wait. also. So the same thing we do here, we call it try catch block. And we log the error. Should we have an error? And then we extract the response which is available in the data object. We get through the structuring, await axios.get, also http localhost 3000/name, and then if we get a response, we simply call set name, which is this here, this state here, and we're also displaying the state on this part of the form here. So we call set name to data, expecting a message object and name. Actually, without message object, I think we're done. So we simply bind all of these. On click should be store, I think store cookie, and on click here, get cookie. Yep. So simply run npm run start. Now as you can see, we have our backend running already on port 3000. So React is asking us if we want to set up the app on another port instead. We click yes. So we can crank up our server, simply reload this, also open my dev tools. Yep. And then say we type this, and we click stop cookie. So we get no error. So let's check our back end. We get undefined here on the name object. Why is that? Are we getting an undefined here? You know what? Let me just log name, and let me try it again. Go back to the and we have our name here. So we can see the front end is successfully sending the name, right? And then if everything works as planned, we should have this setup here. So let's check our application and see if we have any cookie set. Let me expand this. We have no cookie set, and we click on retrieve cookie, right? You see we can't get cookie. So now the question now becomes, what could be the problem? So I think the next thing we need to do is to check if the request is actually getting to the backend as we expect. So we should go to the backend and say, okay, so when we say get name, we should have this, right? So let's try it again. Click stop cookie again. Retrieve cookie. Still nothing. So if we head over back to the Express app, you can see we have undefined. The second time we hit the name route. So which means this information is not even getting to the backend at all. Now there is something you should know about Axios or any other package you're using to make a request to the backend. Anytime you're making a request to the backend, right, and you're making the request to another server or another DNS name or another domain name, you have to send the cookies. You have to explicitly inform the package, being Axios here, that you want to send cookies, and you do that by simply adding in Axios here the with credentials flag and setting it to true. So this tells Axios to send cookies to the server, and then same thing here with credentials, right? So compiling, and it's done. So we try this again one more time. See what to give us. We reload the page, and then click stop cookie.
Now you can already see an error message being logged in the console here, and the error message is saying access to HTTP request at HTTP localhost 3000/new, which is the server we are trying to hit, from origin localhost 3001 has been blocked by CORS policy. Response to pre-flight request doesn't pass the across access control check. Now what this error message is simply telling us is that you can't, the value of the access control allow origin header in the response must not be a wildcard. Now when we go back to our backend, right, that is the Express app, where we set the CORS. We actually set this CORS header, that is the origin header in the response we are sending back to the client, as a wildcard that's being this, right? And as a result, the request can go through, and that is what this error is simply telling us. So it has to do with the way it is most browsers are set up. Most browsers are set up in such a way that you cannot allow a wildcard to be sent when you're sending cookies on a cross origin request. And this error simply kicked in because in the front end, being the React app, we set the with credentials flag to true, right? Assuming this with credentials flag was not present, you won't see any error message just as a CORS error. Right? But with the credentials flag set to true, we are simply telling access that we want to send the cookies, right, across to the server. So the browser automatically generates that error and tells us that we cannot set a wildcard response back when we are sending cookies to the server. So all this is set up just because of security. So imagine you're setting up a token, a secret token or whatever, back to the client, and it could be spoofed if you don't, if all these precautions are not taken. The question now becomes, how do we get a work around this, or how do we solve this problem, right? So it turns out that CORS gives us the ability to set a particular region, that is a particular domain we're expecting requests from on our back end, and we can simply do this by setting an object in the CORS flag and simply set origin to the address we're expecting the request from, being HTTP localhost 3001. So this is where we're expecting the request from. So now this simply tells CORS to set the header to this particular URL, right? And now when the browser sees this, the CORS should pass as expected. So we another thing we need to do on CORS now is to set the credentials flag to true. Now what this tells CORS is to expect credentials being sent from the front end, meaning the React app now, such as cookies, right? So this also passes cookies. This is also necessary for the request for CORS to pass through. So now we are back in the browser. Simply reload and simply call this and click store cookie, right? And now I think it's a good thing we don't see any error here, which means the CORS request passed. And we should also try to get the cookies now, and still we get no response. So let's go back to the Express app and see what's happening again. And now in the Express app, we can see when we made a request the first time to store the cookie, we actually get what we wanted. And when we try to decode the message, we get undefined. And also from the browser, we can see that the cookies is not even being stored in the browser yet. So can you spot the mistake here? Or rather, can you spot why it's still not working yet? Right. So if you look closely, we set the secure flag to true. Right. Remember, I said the secure flag simply signifies that request coming to the back end, coming to the Express app must be HTTPS, not HTTP, and this is required because we are setting the same site attribute to none. Right. And through this now we can see that we cannot set the cookies in the front end unless we use a HTTPS connection, which is pretty difficult to implement. So a simple workaround now for this issue we are having is to set up a proxy, right? So React makes it easy for us to set up a proxy from the package.json file. So this will act like a middleman, since the CORS issue is as a result of the browser. React sends a request to the proxy first, and the proxy makes the request to the server for us. The proxy gets a response and forwards the response back to the React app, and so the browser sees it as though the request is still going through to the same URL. So that is what the proxy simply does for us. Then the question now becomes, how do we set up a proxy in the React app? So to set up a proxy in React app, we simply come to the package.json file, right? And simply add a script called Proxy. And now because the URL we want to proxy the request to is going to be HTTP localhost or 3000. Yep, and the comma here. So again, what the proxy simply does for us is to simply act like a middleman, right? When we send the request to let's say to our Express app, the proxy will intercept the request, make the request for us, right? Since the issue is from the browser, because this CORS issue is only browsers that give CORS issues, right? To ensure security. So this proxy will prevent that for us by making it look as though the response coming back from the server is still coming back from the same localhost 3001 that the React app is running from. So before we go ahead and test this out, there's one more thing we need to do again. So since we are making a request to issue, so the way the proxy functionality works is that anytime it sees a full path, like that includes the HTTP protocol, right, it doesn't use proxy. But anytime it just sees a simple path, right, just say /new here, it automatically makes the request, right, sets to the Express app, and the same thing happens here. If I can just right. So simply the proxy now we see, okay, it will just append the request to this backend server now. So we can simply test this out by going to the browser, right? Reload. Simply type this, click stop cookie. What's happening? Request failed. Let's see what the issue could be. The request is failing, so I think we should just restart the server and see if we still get the same message. Mern start. See if we still get the same message. And reload. And run the same command. And there is no issue. And still the cookies is not being set. So I think I can get where the issue is from here now. Simply go back to the Express app. If you remember, we set the secure attribute to true. I think we can safely turn it to false now, since it doesn't seem like CORS will kick in at all at this in this scenario. So we can simply set the cookies on a non-secure site, being our local host. So we can go back to our browser and try it out again. Simply run this. Still nothing. We also need to set the same site attribute to the default, which is I think lacks. Yeah, this is the default attribute. So let's go and check everything out again at the browser and hope we set the cookie correctly this time around. Yep, as you can see, the cookie is being set successfully. So now let's try to retrieve the cookie. Right, so you can see we are getting the cookie, but we are not setting the state correctly, so that should be a small issue. So let's simply check our front end application and see what's going on there. We are getting the data back. We have it on the message params here, right? Message. All right, so no, we should not access it because there's no new property from the back end. So this should work now. Let's head back to the browser, reload. I will delete this, call on this, stop cookie, and retrieve. Right, now you can see the name being displayed here finally. So this worked fine because we are simply using a proxy and because we're in development mode. Now in production mode is quite a different scenario. We are not going to be using localhost. We're going to be using a real URL, a real HTTPS URL. So we are going to be making use of the former procedure, that is, we are going to be setting up CORS again. Now in preparation for deployment, we need to set the secure attributes back to true and same site attributes back to none. Now in most deployment environments, we usually have the back end and the front end hosted on two different servers, right, or two different pods, as we call it in Heroku, right? Now remember in development we proxy the request. That is why we set the same site attributes to lax, right? Now we did set the same site attributes to none and set the secure flag back to true. And since most platform as a service, most servers provide us with the HTTPS protocol, we would not have the issue of having to use proxy again because we have the secured environment as required by the cookie options here. Another thing we need to do is to set the trust proxy to 1. because it is very likely Heroku and most other services, platform as a service, makes use of load balancers, and as such requests are forwarded from there, most likely through HTTP. And as such, set proxy says, what set proxy simply does is to tell the Express app to look at the X forwarded header and look at the first IP address, since that is where most likely the origin IP address is going to be. And we can simply call on set proxy as, I'm going to put it here, app.set call trust proxy to 1. Now that is what this does. And then another thing we need to do now is to set the origin at this point here, since we are setting it here in localhost, if you remember. So now this origin has to be the particular origin of the front end application. That's where the React app is going to be hosted on Heroku. So this is not a deployment video. I have a deployment video showing how we can deploy a Mern stack application on Heroku. I will leave the link in the description section below. So but I will not. I'll be skipping this part. I will simply deploy the application and I'll be back. So as I mentioned earlier, this is not a deployment video, though I have a video on deployment. I'll link it in the description section. But this is the front end application, the React app being hosted on Heroku. As you can see, the connection is also secure thanks to Heroku. As you can see, it's a HTTPS connection, so we'll not have an issue with the secure attribute set on the cookie. So we can simply copy this and simply paste it here. And I think in the package of this also set this to start script to node app.js. So I will simply push this to Heroku, and also in the front end I will simply put the backend, the Heroku backend URL right here. Simply put the URL right here and here. So everything should work as planned now. Yep. So simply push this also to Heroku. So I just shipped the code to the new code to Heroku. So upon successful deployment to Heroku, both the front end and the back end application has been successfully pushed to Heroku. So we'll simply reload this. And now let's test out everything in deployment. Say John Doe store cookie, then retrieve cookie. Now something strange is going on here. When we click on store cookie, we are not seeing the cookie appear right here under the cookies bar here. But then when we click retrieve cookie, it's going through. So what could cause this? Well, if you guess correctly, you can see that this URL here is simply the front end application. So if we found a way to visit the back end, which is this, and we reloaded this, and we come to application, we can see the cookie being stored here. Like this is the cookie that was set from this front cookie, because this URL does not match the URL of the cookie, and that's why it's not appearing here. Also, if you're making use of Chrome, you can come to the lock button, come to cookies, and you can see where the cookie is coming from. The cookie back 0.heroku. This is the URL Heroku gives us to store for the backend server, and you can see the cookie here. So I think that everything's working as we expected. And sometimes if you've been observant, you can see that cookies sometimes can be an issue because of error messages are kind of poor, and it's dependent on a lot of factors. So you can also make use of cookies too in your project for sign in and sign up and things like that. So a brief recap of the video. I first explained how we can set up cookies in a React app and Express app. I explained we had to use proxy since there's no way we can enforce the HTTPS protocol. Also, I explained that since most times our apps, both front end and back end, will be decoupled and will be hosted on different URL during production, we had to set the same site attribute flag to none, right? And most browsers force us to set the secure attributes to true due to security reasons. Also when setting up CORS with with cookies, we need to specify the particular area we expect the request from, and that's why we have to specify the particular URL we expect our front-end app, that is our React app, is being hosted from. Also in the front end, that's in our React application, we need to add the with credentials flag and set it to true. So we are using Axios in this scenario, so even if we are using fetch also any other package to send request, you will need to specify the with credentials flag to true. This tells the package here being Axios to send cookies across domain. So finally, I hope this video would help you out when setting up cookies in your Mern stack applications, and I would really appreciate if you can leave me a thumbs up and then subscribe to my channel to get more interesting content. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section. Thanks for watching once again.